Welcome back to Mother Myth and Macabre, the show where we unpack ancient myths and legends and how they still shape us.
Today's episode, So You Think You're a Hero? We're exploring what it really means to be a hero across time, culture, and even reality.
And to help us answer that, we've invited a special guest, the embodiment of heroic myth itself. Welcome, the hero. Thanks for having me. I've gone by many names, Hercules, Odysseus, even Thor, but the journey is always the same.
Let's start there. What is a hero?
A hero is someone who accepts the call to adventure, faces trials, and returns transformed. Not for the glory, but for growth. Joseph Campbell called it monomyth, or hero's journey. It's not just action, it's transformation. All right, now let's bring in your ancient side, like Hercules. Sure, Hercules faces the 12 labors. Impossible tasks? Yes, but also deeply symbolic. After killing his family in madness, he seeks redemption. Every labor isn't just a fight, it's a moral trial. Campbell would call this atonement with the Father, a key stage of the journey.
Right, and even though Hercules is mythic, his path reflects something human, owning your mistakes, seeking forgiveness.
Exactly. It's instruction, not just entertainment. It's, in Jungian terms, Hercules is battling his shadow self. Monsters outside that mirror, struggles within. All right, now contrast that with Odysseus, his encounter with Polyphemus. Odysseus shows a different side of heroism: cleverness, endurance, restraint. Facing the Cyclops, he doesn't fight, he strategizes. But then pride gets him in trouble. He tells Polyphemus his name and brings Poseidon's wrath on himself. That's the flawed hero, though, an important archetype.
So whenever it's brute strength or cleverness, both myths show the same truth. The hero suffers, learns, and changes.
Yes.
Learns and changes.
Yes, Campbell's myth model fits them both. Call to adventure, trials, abyss, transformation, return. Whether it's Hercules cleaning the Augean stables or Odysseus sailing across Ithaca, it's about becoming more than you were. So, what about today's world? Does your definition still hold? Absolutely. Modern heroes face systematic injustices: climate change, violence, not dragons, Malala, Greta, health workers, teachers. They step into uncertainty, act for others, and come back changed. That's the same cycle.
So to anyone wondering if they could be a hero?
If you're willing to step up, even when it's uncomfortable, for something bigger than yourself, you're already on the journey. Myths, then, aren't just old stories. They're maps from modern lives.
Exactly. Hercules teaches us about redemption. Odysseus teaches us about wisdom and humility. And Campbell gives us a model to apply it all.
And every generation rewrites the myth, but the message always stays the same. Good afternoon and welcome to Divine Archetypes exhibit. I'm Dr. Repass, your curator today, and I invite you to pause here in front of this extraordinary statue, the goddess Isis. She's one of the oldest and most beloved deities of the Egyptian pantheon. You'll notice her wings, symbolic of protection. In one hand, she holds the Akh, the key of life, in other, the sistrum, used in sacred rituals. But today, we're not just admiring her beauty. We're asking a provocative question: is Isis a hero? At first glance, perhaps not. She's not a warrior like Hercules or a trickster like Odysseus. She doesn't wield a sword or go on a battlefield, but if we examine her story, the lens through which we define a hero, we find something richer. When her husband Osiris is murdered and dismembered by his brother Set, Isis doesn't collapse into grief, she acts. She searches tirelessly across Egypt, gathers Osiris's scattered parts, and resurrects him through sacred rites. Later, she raises their son Horus in secret, training him to reclaim the throne and restore order to Egypt. That journey, that transformation, it mirrors what John Campbell called the hero's journey. There's a call to action, trials, loss, sacrifice, and finally, the return with new knowledge or healing. And Carl Jung would recognize Isis as an archetype of the Great Mother, a figure not just of fertility, but of resilience and deep psychological transformation. In that sense, Isis is a hero, not just in the usual way. Her power isn't in violence, it's in restoration, in preservation, and in her determination to rebuild what chaos destroys. We see the same heroic pattern in other goddess myths. Consider Demeter, whose grief over the abduction of her daughter Persephone causes the earth to wither. She negotiates with the gods themselves to restore balance, and in doing so, she gives the world the cycle of seasons. Like Isis, she changes the world through maternal strength and endurance. So does Isis fit the traditional hero mold? No, she reshapes it. And perhaps that's the point. Her story challenges us to redefine heroism itself, not as a conquest, but as courage in grief, perseverance through loss, and the power to heal. Thank you for joining me today. And when you leave this room, I invite you to ask yourself, whose story do we call heroic and why? And perhaps is Isis we see a hero, not of might, but of meaning? And for our closing statement, today we redefine the word hero, not just through brute strength or cunning, but through emotional endurance, spiritual resilience, and the power to restore what's been lost. We met Hercules, we saw redemption through impossible tasks. We met Odysseus, who learned of humility on his winding journey home. And then we met Isis, a goddess who pieced her husband back together and raised a child in hiding, not for glory, but to restore divine order. Through the lens of Campbell's hero's journeys and Jung's archetypes, we see that these figures, male or female, share one thing: the courage to change, to act, and to return with new wisdom. A hero mold is not just about warriors, it's about healers, seekers, and mothers of myths. And as you step back into your world, ask yourself, whose stories do we celebrate as heroic, and what stories have we overlooked? And if you ever wonder whether you could be a hero, remember this: you don't need a sword, just the will to walk towards what matters.